I'm at my friend Jamie's house. Not only does she have an amazing vegetable garden, which she's going to show me, she's also got chooks right here in suburban Melbourne. She's got berries growing, she's got fruit trees, she's got some awesome ideas for keeping the pests away, and just about everything that she has planted in her garden is edible. Do you want to go for a tour? Let's check it out.
Strawberry slug. There we go. Oh yes, you love that. And they hold together really well.
Oh! You're cheeky.
I am originally from the US, but I live in Melbourne, suburbs, and I have a husband and 2 kids who are 1 and 4.
I couldn't find any plants in your garden that were not edible. Tell me about your love of edible gardening.
I don't know where it came from, except that my grandparents always had a huge edible garden. But I love the idea that plants are like useful and that I'm producing something that can be eaten or could even be used in like cosmetics or medicinal uses. So I try to grow plants that I'll use.
Jamie's going to give us a tour of her amazing garden, but first click the like button if you like what you're seeing. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't. That just means you won't miss out on the next video when it's uploaded. Let's keep going.
Right, so this is my veggie garden and I've got 12 wicking beds. So that means that there's a reservoir of water underneath and then a separation layer and then soil, and I get to water it through these little tubes.
Oh,
and the water,
so clever.
Yeah, the water goes down to the bottom, and then the wicking action brings the moisture up to the roots of the plant. So instead of having to water from above, you water from below, and then you fill it up. It drains out the drain hole, and you know it's full. You can water it maybe once a week, so it's really nice if like you're going away.
So you could go away, leave your garden for a week, and it'd be totally fine.
Totally fine.
And where did these come from?
So I got these from a local company called Dan the Veggie Bin Man, and I was not in a place where I was ready to build my own beds at the time when I had these installed. So he and his business just like brought them in, filled them up, put the soil in, mixture of garden soil and compost and manures. And I was basically just like ready to start planting, which was really nice. It was an investment for sure. But I love the fact that it's, they're wicking so I can leave them and that they're raised so it's quite easy to work with. And I've got a lot of planting space, which is really good. Fruiting was like corn, melons, cucumber, cucurbits, watermelon. So that whole row was that in the summer, and then I composted it, and now it's all broccoli and cabbage and kale and Brussels sprouts. What about this one? This is my raspberry bed, which is very wild. Yeah. You want the raspberry?
So you've got raspberries growing in winter.
These are autumn raspberries.
I didn't know there was such a thing.
Yeah, so autumn fruiting raspberries. That's why you find a flush of raspberries in the autumn in the supermarkets. It's a different variety. And they're called primocane raspberries, which means that instead of them fruiting on last year's canes, they fruit on new canes every year. So autumn raspberries are a really nice way of extending your berry harvest. I'm definitely going to build a better trellis next time because they do just go everywhere. So, and like this walkway was completely blocked until I put this little fence up. So in this bed, that's a lemon tree, my much more healthy passion fruit there, and then asparagus all along the bottom. This is asparagus. So I planted, I think it was 8 crowns all along here, 2 different varieties. And I'm gonna have to wait a couple years before the spears are big enough to actually eat. My garden's still really young. Like we've only lived here less than 2 years. So a lot of the plants aren't producing as much as they will in a couple years. And so I'm hoping that will actually increase. So these baskets, I just got them in Hard Rubbish. They're from like the wire rack, like sliding drawers that you get. And I just put them over, especially younger plants to keep my cat from digging in the garden. But it also keeps birds out and protects the smaller plants from animals. And they're lightweight, easy to store, easy to move around. So yeah, whenever I see any, I just pick them up. Not gonna blow away in the wind. They're not the most attractive things ever, but I hardly care about that. I don't think my lettuces care. Once the plants get big enough, obviously I'll take them off and then the plants can kind of fend for themselves. But when they're young, it's very helpful. The snow peas, not quite ready yet, but I've got some little ones and then some bigger ones.
Any tricks when it comes to growing snow peas?
They don't really need any tricks. They're so easy. You stick them in the ground up to like your first or second knuckle. Stick them in and then wait a little while and then they grow. They have to climb up something unless you get a bush variety. You can get bush varieties that are shorter and don't need as much support, but these are climbing varieties. So you see they send out these little tendrils and they need something quite small to hold on to. Like this wire is perfect. Twine actually works really well. I've used netting before. And so this bed will be peas as well, but I'm gonna wait until these ones are producing and then I'll plant more so that I can kind of keep a successive crop going. These are purple cabbages. And when I want to cover the entire thing, I use this bird netting and framework. So these ones are quite happy. I have the biggest problem with the white cabbage moth. That's why I only grow brassicas in winter, because otherwise they're just guaranteed to get eaten by the caterpillars. Spring onions here. Spring onions there. These are carrots. So this is my root and allium bed at the moment. We had a lovely roasted carrots the other night for dinner, and they look quite small, and I planted them very, very thickly. Yummy. So I'll just go through and pick out the biggest ones and have them for a snack or for dinner. So these are my little baby carrots that are coming on, and I planted those probably 4 weeks ago from seed. Carrots are really best grown from seed because they're a root vegetable. They don't like being moved or transplanted. It'll shock them quite a lot. So if you can grow them in situ from seed, then that is the best way of doing it. And the seeds are so teeny tiny. They're really fun to plant. And I just basically scatter them everywhere. I don't try and plant them in rows. Just scatter them really, really thickly, and then they grow really close together. And then you can thin them out like I'm doing now to leave the smaller ones to get bigger. And they're delicious.
They look delicious. Got purple carrots for it.
Yum. This is my leftover chili crop, which took forever for them to ripen. Those are bird's eye, so those are pretty spicy. I basically grow those for my husband because he loves his spice. Really nice to have a regular supply, especially when in the supermarket it's quite expensive. These are jalapenos. I'm not sure those are actually going to ripen though. And then these are the Joe's Long Cayenne variety. So this whole bed along the side and on this side as well are like my perennial plants. So I've got a whole lot of strawberries and like sage and lemongrass, artichoke, rhubarb, some of which I brought from my old house with me.
So these are strawberries down here?
Yeah, so lots of strawberries. They're looking a little bit sad from the winter, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come out and I'm gonna cut off all of these older stems, and then the young leaves come up every year. And we just get heaps of strawberries, which is really nice. And the boys just like come out and find them and eat them.
Is that fennel?
That's fennel. So I'm growing that as a perennial, and then you can cut the fronds and use the fronds in cooking, or you can like cut off the little bulbs at the bottom, but I'm not really growing it for the bulbs as much.
I didn't even know that could be a perennial.
Yeah, it just kind of spreads and comes back. And you can grow it for seed as well. I like the seed in cooking as well as to grow new plants.
So how many bulbs would that have started off as?
Just one. I think I got a little seedling from Bunnings. Or that one might have been from seed, actually. I can't remember now. We've got a bay tree.
For like stews.
Yeah, so you break off a leaf and then you chuck it in a stew or even in a curry, and you take it out. You don't eat it, but it really flavors it really nicely. A lavender. You can make lavender oil or lavender sachets for your closet. This is spring onions that are being grown again as perennials.
So you just chop them off when you need something? And...
Yeah, chop them off, or like chop off a little stem like that, and just kind of let them go. My rhubarb's not doing great, but it can take a few years to kind of establish itself. And that's an artichoke. Got 2 artichokes. This was up to here in the spring. And then it dies back, and you can chop it back, and then it will grow up again, so that it'll be really beautiful and tall. And then like the artichoke flowers will come out, and you can eat the buds basically.
I can see something over here.
That is a caneberry of some kind. I think it might be a sylvanberry. I'm really bad at labeling things. I always think I'm going to remember, and I don't. So I would like to build a trellis along this entire fence and have climbers all the way along. So of course I planted the climbers before the trellis, but it'll be a project. This is lemongrass, which has done really well. Certainly in the spring and summer, the fruit is my favorite. Like the peaches, the strawberries, and the plums that are really prolific and so much more delicious than you get in the store. Like that's my favorite. Just being able to come out and like pick like a really beautiful strawberry, and like when they're ready as well, it's like early summer and really beautiful. That's a lot of fun. Although the calendula is actually not a perennial, but they just self-seed themselves.
What are these ones called?
Calendula. So it's actually a flower that is used a lot in like skin remedies and cosmetic uses. So you can like make a balm or an oil with it. And it's so cheerful, like it's really cheerful and really easy to deal with. This is peach tree. It's deciduous, so obviously winter. And I'm gonna repot it this winter and give it some new soil. And last year I didn't spray the buds with copper, and it got quite bad leaf curl, and I lost about half my peaches. But it's like the little teeny tree like makes peaches like that big, and they're just so delicious. That's one of my favorites for sure.
And so you could do that in a pot, so someone could do that on a balcony if they wanted to.
Absolutely. So this is a self-watering pot, so you can actually water it from down below, and then it keeps the water in it.
Oh, there's an actual berry growing.
Well, it used to be a berry. Now it's a slug.
Ooh.
Should we give that to the chickens? The chickens would love that.
When did you get the chooks?
Let's see. So I got the chooks of November last year. So they were spring chooks.
Spring chickens.
They were spring chickens, yeah. So I bought them at point of lay. So that meant that they were young, but they were going to start laying for the first time in about 6 weeks. And so when I brought them home, they weren't laying yet, and it took about 6 weeks, and then they just started laying, and they've never stopped. Let's see if we've got any eggs. These are the laying boxes, and got 2. Hello. Pretty much get 2 eggs a day. Winter is sometimes like one every other day. Hi, sweetheart. They are amazing. They're like, the yolks are so bright orange, and they stay together really well. Like if you poach them, you almost don't need to use vinegar in the water because they just like are so fresh that they stay together. And it's really, they really taste gorgeous. And you don't have to spend money on eggs at the supermarket. So
where did you get your chicken coop from?
So I got the chicken coop. I was super lucky. I got it from my local Buy Nothing group, and it was free, which is amazing. Someone had it and he didn't want to use it anymore. So I actually paid someone to deliver it here because it's quite large. And I cleaned it out, and I installed some more like mesh on it to keep the foxes out, and it was ready to go.
I've learned so much about raising chooks today that I've decided to do an entirely separate video on that. If you want to learn more about raising chooks in a backyard, that video will be uploaded in the next week or 2. Hit subscribe and you'll see it soon. Once it's uploaded, I'll add the link in the description.
You hear them talking to each other, and every night they perch up on their little perch, and I come out and say goodnight and lock them in.